I can't believe it. It is Friday already, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, this week is just in zippity-doo-dah by. Here we are, time for the big day of the week. Audience and callers love this day. They never know what's coming next. Actually, you never know what's coming next any day of the week, but there's something psychologically pleasing about Friday because it's Open Line Friday and all that. So let's go ahead and get started. Rush Limbaugh, glad to have you with us, my friends, as we chug you on into the weekend.
Live from New York, it's Open Line Friday!
And, of course, this is a day that challenges Mr. Snerdley the most. He thinks it's its easiest day, but actually it's not. This is where you have a little bit greater latitude and leeway in getting on the program. So here's the phone number, 1-800-282-2882. Email address is rush@eibnet.com. Normally, Monday through Thursday, we talk about the issues of the day. We don't talk about topics. We don't talk about things that happened years and years and years ago unless they relate to the present. But today, we make exceptions. If you have an old issue that you wanted to talk about, you couldn't get through then. If it's interesting to Mr. Snerdley, thinks you can make it interesting, he'll let you on the air. So give it a shot. You've got the number, 800-282-2882. Well, my friends, they're starting to get a little upset now in Washington, D.C. Democrats. And I haven't seen a lot of upset anywhere else, but in Washington, Democrats are getting a little upset over Dan Burton calling the president, excuse me just a moment. For you parents out there, I keep forgetting to do this, and I hope you'll forgive me. If you wish to protect your children from certain words that are not nice, you may want to send them out of the room now, because we are going to be discussing the president a little bit here. And anymore, you can hardly discuss the president in the company of children. So I just want to give you that heads up. I'll count down from 5, and after that, you're on your own. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, they're getting a little upset over Burton calling Clinton a scumbag. I still don't detect a whole lot of upset out there across the fruited plain. But I do detect that the Democrats are now threatening to censure Burton and all sorts of stuff. So Tom McCardle, who is one of our associate editors and writers, the Limbaugh letter, has done some research. He dug up some of the things that liberal Democrats have called Republicans in the recent past. And he sent this on to me today, and I want to share some of this stuff with you. Most of it we noted when it happened. And I should also point out that when it happened, there wasn't any sense of outrage about these things either from Democrats or even really from Republicans. They didn't have too much to say about it. But I'll give you some names and some of the quotes attributed to these people, and you tell me if it is even worse than Dan Burton calling the President of the United States a scumbag. Here's Leon Panetta. Well, let me just speak to that. This is not a real choice. This is a false choice. If the Republicans really believe in the validity of their budget, let them take it to the American people. But don't put a gun to the head of the president and the head of the country and say, you don't accept our priorities, you don't accept what we want to do to Medicare and Medicaid, or what we want to do to education, we're going to blow you apart. That's a form of terrorism. You remember when that happened, Mr. Snerdley? We had that one on television. Leon Panetta wanted to put the notion in people's heads that Republicans figuratively had a gun to the heads of the president and vice president and called it a form of terrorism. Is that worse than scumbag? I think so. Here's Charlie Rangel. It was tough picking a couple of his because his are so outrageous. Here's Charlie Rangel. He said this on Meet the Press on February 19th, 1995. Well, let me tell you this. You know, the thing that I think about is not so much Hitler, but how nobody knew what was happening to the Jews. The Pope didn't know, President Roosevelt didn't know, the Christians didn't know, some German Jews didn't know, and today, when you see what's happening, education being knocked first on the list, health care for the poor is being knocked, welfare checks taken away, it just seems to me that there's a similarity comparing Republicans to Nazis. Here is Charles Rangel. Again, he was making a speech to a group of black and Puerto Rican activists. He said the Republican budget cuts were worse than what happened in Nazi Germany. Hitler wasn't even talking about doing these things. comparing Republican budget cuts and finding them worse than the Holocaust? Charles Rangel. Worse than Scumbag, my friends, I ask you. You want more Charles Rangel? Here he is, quoted in the New York Times, May 20th, 1996, speaking to about 100 municipal healthcare workers and union supporters outside of Harlem Hospital. He decided to brandish this controversial barb. He said, quote, "They're concerned because I say they're gang raping us. They say that's a terrible thing to say about women. Well, I ain't saying that about women. They're gang raping the budget and the poor." Patricia Schroeder, Democrat, Colorado, once used the word lynching and talked about Republican goose-stepping. She said, "Slow down. We don't believe in lynchings. We don't want to see that kind of goose-stepping over women's rights." Quoted in the Los Angeles Times, February 11, 1995. Major Owens. Now, you know who he is. Major Owens is a guy who, in fact, rather than try to paraphrase this Open Line Friday, let's have some fun. You guys take some time. Mr. Booty, I know you were not the broadcast engineer, but this has got to be archived on one of our myriad CDs. Major Owens talking about slavery, sharks still swimming the route, the number of thrown overboard, blah, blah, blah. See if you can find that. I mean, give yourself, 10 or 15 seconds and then let me know. I'm only kidding. Give yourself all the time you need to find that. Major Owens quoted a Linda Chavez column on April 14th in 1995. Owens agreed with Representative Rangel. "These are people who are practicing genocide with a smile. They're worse than Hitler." All this was about the budget. Worse than Scumbag. William Clay, Democrat, Missouri. Congressional Record, March 22, 1995. "The reason Republicans want to limit debate on this issue is because they know that they're not telling the truth. They get incensed every time somebody mentions Nazi Germany in relation to what they want to do to poor people in this country. Well, let me say, Hitler had a minister of propaganda that said, tell a lie, tell it big enough, tell it often enough, and it'll become the truth." John Dingell, Democrat, Michigan. On Nightline, April 7th, 95. "Oh, the discipline ranks about equal to what I've seen in the Duma or in the Reichstag. It is extraordinary discipline. Members of the Senate and House on the Republican side who don't approve of things they're talking about are going along." Earl Hilliard, Democrat, Alabama, said that Newt Gingrich and Adolf Hitler were similar. Quoted in the New York Times, June 4th, 95. "There's a similarity between Newt and Hitler. Hitler started out getting rid of the poor and those he said were a drag on society, and Newt's starting out the same way." Is that worse than Scumbag? George Miller, Democrat, California. Congressional Record, August 3rd, 1995. "It's a glorious day if you're a fascist. It's a glorious day." Pete Stark, Fortney Pete Stark, Democrat, California. Congressional Record, March 21st, 1995. "We should call this legislation the Government Responsibility Abdication Act because all this bill does is to drop the responsibilities of the federal government and push poor people off a cliff." Fortney Pete Stark, speaking of Republican Nancy Johnson. Or what about the reference of Pete Stark to Nancy Johnson? He called her a whore for the insurance industry. Fortney Pete Stark, Washington Times, May 3rd, 95. Called a black Bush cabinet official a disgrace to your race and said a female Republican in the House was a whore for the insurance agency. Patsy Schroeder talking about me. Who was this from? This is St. Louis Post-Dispatch, March 7th, 1995. Representative Patsy Schroeder suggested Monday that the League of Women Voters consider getting into the talk radio business to counteract the Republicans and Rush Limbaugh, the conservative GOP talk show host. Under GOP plans for revising welfare and food subsidy programs, she said the first thing being thrown off the ship are women and children. Worse than Scumbag, ladies and gentlemen. And finally, Democratic Texas Senate candidate Victor Morales, quoted in the Houston Chronicle, September 26, 1996, said he would like to see voters take out U.S. Representative Henry Bonilla of San Antonio. He called Bonilla a wannabe white. Reminds me of the people when I was growing up that we called chocolate chips coconuts. These people were dark-skinned but ignored their heritage and aspired to live like white people. And then don't forget Al Gore poisoning the water and air so more people will die. This is true hateful rhetoric, ladies and gentlemen, and it's been the feature of the Democratic Congress and Democratic liberal leadership since they lost the House of Representatives in 1994. And this business of Burton calling, and nobody asked for these people to be censured. Nobody demanded that they resign. None of the sort happened. And yet now they're all over Burton for calling the president a scumbag. Now, maybe it wasn't a politic thing to do, who knows, but it certainly is not. It doesn't rank anywhere near the words, phrases that have been used. In fact, I'll never forget Rangel talking about how the new Nazis, the new Klan, I think he was the new Klan, wears dark suits, white shirts and red ties, and talk about tax cuts. He said those are the kind of people that are the new Nazis and the new Klan, something like that. So just to put it in perspective, ladies and gentlemen, recalling for you things you may have forgotten. On the program today, we got big news or exciting news about education. Al Checky has really stepped in it out in California. I have just a funny, tremendous story about it. We got all sorts of great stuff waiting to come your way. On the program today, Open Line Friday, more news about Webb Hubble. He didn't just get $500,000. He got $700,000 for little or no work. So we'll get to all this stuff and your phone calls on Open Line Friday. Don't go away.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
Yeah, okay, great. What year? 95 or 6, something like that, right? Greetings. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Still in the process of talking to producers of the program. What's the year on that date? Can you... No, it couldn't have been 90. That's when he carded it. Couldn't have been 97. Major Owens didn't say this stuff 97. He said, doesn't matter when he said it. It's got to be within the past 3 years. Major Owens, I just want you to hear this since I referred to it. Major Owens, special orders, floor of the House of Representatives.
What about the 200 million people who were lost in the Atlantic crossing? Very conservative estimates say that the slave trade, just the crossing of the Atlantic, bringing the slaves across, there were 200 million people who died just coming across. So great was the number of people who were thrown overboard that it altered the ecology of the ocean. The sharks, even now, trace or follow after ships along a trail, seeking the flesh that was thrown overboard in all those years, 200 years of the slave trade.
Those sharks have long memories. That was the audience of my TV show there, ladies and gentlemen, laughing at the ridiculousness of Major Owens. We ran numbers on this. 200 million slaves dead over a certain number of years. We figured out that hundreds of ships would have to leave every day, and everybody on board, I mean, like with 400 people on board, would have to be thrown overboard, all of them, every day for like 10 years for the number to reach. I mean, it was so preposterous, and it was so preposterous that he was embarrassed. He corrected it the next couple of days and revised the numbers down somewhat. We ran those numbers, and they couldn't have been accurate either. It just was one of the most hilarious events. But, you know, it was instructive because that's the, you know, I talked yesterday about the template. You wonder about the press being liberal or this or that. They just have some basic beliefs that are always there no matter what happens, the template. And Major Owens and civil rights leaders have the same template about their beliefs. And they believe that all these slaves are thrown overboard and died, so many that the sharks are still hoping for more, following ships across the Atlantic, tracing the route. It altered the ecology of the oceans. While we're playing audio sound bites from the past, ladies and gentlemen, we thought we'd open this one back up. Nobody's gotten this right. I know a lot of you people think you're right about it, but I'm telling you, you aren't. Nobody has gotten this right. We want to know, when you listen here to Senator Ted Kennedy at a campaign appearance for President Clinton, we want to know what Ted Kennedy is saying at the end of these remarks. Is this Clinton country? Hello! Hello! And after we all do what needs to be done for the next 2.5 weeks, and we elect Mark Roosevelt as our governor, and you re-elect old Kennedy in the United States Senate, we're going to start on the 96 campaign to elect Bill Clinton as our re-elect him on the next one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Senator Ted Kennedy. Here's the short version of it so you can hear it once again. As I re-elect him on the next one. Play it again, Mr. Booty, when you get it recued so that people can hear this again. As I re-elect him on the next one. A lot of people think they've figured that out. I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, you're wrong. The reason you're wrong is he didn't say anything. He was just uttering syllables. I defy anybody. Well, I mean, we played that in slow motion. We played it backwards. We searched for subliminal satanic messages in this. We tried everything. We hooked it up to a disgratificator. We hooked it up to a spectrometer. We hooked it up to a spectrographer. We hooked it up to every oscilloscope. We put it on every device that we could find. In our TV studio, we had the state-of-the-art in there, and they couldn't make sense of it. It doesn't make any sense. You cannot translate. You can try all you want, but I'm telling you, here, listen to the whole thing. And Mr. Goody, get the 38-second version. Listen to the whole thing again so you can hear it in context. You cannot tell me what he says because he's not saying anything. Is this Clinton country? And after we all do what needs to be done for the next 2.5 weeks, and we elect Mark Roosevelt as our governor, and you re-elect... Runs out of breath there, or runs out... The glass was empty. And you re-elect old Kennedy in the United States Senate, we're going to start on the 96 campaign to elect Bill Clinton as our re-elect him on the next one. Okay, back to the phones. We'll start on Open Line Friday with Dave in Albany. Hello, sir. I'm glad you called. Welcome to the Rush Limbaugh program.
How you doing, Rush?
Fine.
I'm still laughing over the commentary there relative to Ted Kennedy. That was funny. Anyway, to my point. Essentially, during your initial monologue when you first started, and I've listened to you for years, I guess by definition I'm a moderate Republican, to give you a little background. The analogy that I felt you were drawing relative to various name-calling factors to various Republicans, I felt it was really an incorrect analogy because of the fact, I think you're buying into the whole Democratic piece here of that he's the president. Therefore, it really doesn't matter what they said about Newt Gingrich or Frank Jones or whoever. The fact is he's the president. This is why the public polls are really the way that they are. It's sort of playing into the Democratic hand.
Wait a second. Totally. How the polls are that the guy's popularity is at an all-time high.
That's correct. The reason why it's at an all-time high is because of these types of analogies. In other words, two wrongs don't make a right.
Oh, but that's not right. I know what you're saying. You're saying that the office of the presidency deserves a degree of respect no matter who holds it. And just because the Democrats run around flapping their gums the way they do, that the Republicans should not compound the problem, but rather should set a higher standard and be larger than the Democrats are being. And when they're not larger, when they sink to the level of the Democrats, it just so angers everybody that the president's poll numbers shoot up, right? If that's true, then why didn't the Republicans' poll numbers shoot up when the Democrats were doing this times 25, all during 1995 and 96 and 97. Why didn't the Republicans poll them? The poll numbers the president has are based on people's either apathy or contentment with the economy. They're not based on any respect for the White House or the presidency personally, because there isn't any. The polls from the Wall Street Journal yesterday show it.
Here it comes. Yeah, here it comes. Yeah, here it comes. Here it comes. Rush Limbaugh. Can't stop Rush.
Don't even try, ladies and gentlemen. Rush Limbaugh coming at you on the Excellence in Broadcasting Network at 1-800-282-2882. Let me elaborate, ladies and gentlemen, on one of the points our previous caller made, because I know what he's saying. I really do. So I want to put it to you as a question, because I think this summarizes the whole problem. A big problem that many of you have had over the last, say, 3 years, since the big intense battles began in 1995. So here you have all these insults, all of these outrageous lies being said by liberal Democrats. Don't want to go through the list again, but, calling Republicans Nazis and saying that the budget plans are worse than the Holocaust and all that sort of stuff. Nobody says a word. Here comes Burton, calls President Clinton a scumbag, and everybody's now, the Democrats are demanding that he resign or that he be censured, or Republicans dismiss him, blah, 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 blah. Many people view Burton's comments as, in fact, mild and a little late compared to what the Democrats have accused Republicans of. And a lot of you, I know, a lot of you have just been fed up out there because the Republicans let $100 million of advertising go by and they didn't answer it. All the school lunch, starving kids, all the Medicare cuts, and the old folks kicked out of nursing homes, and the poisoning of the air and water, and all that went on and on and on, and it was never responded to. And you were sending in your contributions to the Republicans thinking you're going to run a countering media campaign, and they didn't. Should they do the same thing? Should they just continue now to take the high road? Or is the question, hey, look, because we had, and we're going to replay this for you, Joe Scarborough, who's a member of the freshman class of 1994. He was on this program on Wednesday, and he said some incredible things. In fact, we're going to replay this interview in the last hour of the program today, because for those of you who may not know why the Republicans stumbled after the 95 government shutdown, Joe Scarborough will tell you inside of 3 minutes in this interview. It's amazing the insight that he offers about that period and what he thinks of the future. He's very optimistic. He's a member of the freshman class of 1994, but he said something else in that interview. If you recall, I do, of course, because of my superior memory. He said that we can't start complaining about how unfair things are and how the press isn't with us and this and that. We've got to play on the battlefield that is presented us. So I ask you, is playing on the battlefield that's presented getting down and dirty like the liberal Democrats do? See, I think it is, but I think you can get down and dirty with them and be honest. You don't have to make things up about them. That's been the thing that I've always maintained. The liberals have to make up this Nazi stuff. They have to make up this worse than the Holocaust stuff. They have to make up this. I don't want to go through the list again because it took me 15 minutes to do it the first time, and I don't want to be accused of being redundant here, but you know the things that have happened. And they lie about, those are all lies. Now, we can come back at them and say things about them that are true, that people might find offensive, but that's sometimes the truth offends people. Ask me about that. Ask me about shining a light of truth on a bunch of people who'd rather be like cockroaches and scurry for the darkness. So the question then becomes, well, is Scumbag truthful? Well, nobody's refuted the charge. Is it proper? Arguable. But certainly, would Scarborough consider it playing on the arena or on the field of battle that we've been given. So it's something to think about. Newt Gingrich, this is tremendous here. President Clinton has refused to, for a second time, he's refused to fire back at Burton over his reference to the president as a scumbag. He has McCurry do it. See, Clinton doesn't do it. He has McCurry do it. And he says, I don't know anything about that. Did Mike say that? Did Mike say that it was amazing for him to be able to put together a word with 2 syllables? Well, that's really funny, but I didn't know he did that. My rear end, you didn't know. You guys sat around for half a day working that one up. Yeah, this is like, they claimed executive privilege. Well, that was when I was in Africa. You better ask the lawyers about that. I don't know anything about that. They claimed executive privilege for Hillary. You talk to her about that. I wouldn't know. Same old, same old. So Clinton says, I don't know anything about this. Clinton said, and this is a real juicy one. Clinton said he could not, quote, let human feelings interfere with the job, saying that when confronted with personal...
And even more disgusting, the geeks have taken over the studio. This is Nathan Garcia. You're listening to
Bill Clinton, ladies and gentlemen, saying when confronted with personal assaults, you just have to blow it off. This is great, folks. It's a good thing all this happened. I love this. You just have to blow it off and think about something else. He has experience, doesn't he? Mason City, Iowa. This is a cell call. Greg, hello. Glad you called. Welcome to the program. Open Line Friday. It's all yours.
Thank you, Rush, and thank you for all that you do. I really appreciate it out here.
You're more than welcome. All that and more.
If you recall, Rush, back to your television show a number of years ago, one of the most offensive things that I have ever seen come across the airwaves was Al Gore on the TV talking about the extreme right-wing entity of the Republican Party that was the extra chromosome right wing.
Yeah, do you remember who he was referring to there?
No, I don't.
Well, I'll give you because I have that quote right here. I'm glad you brought that up, Greg, and just to show you people how prepared I, your host, am for whatever comes up on this program. Vice perpetrator Al Gore said this at a White House special briefing, October 23rd, 1994. And he was talking about, and this broadcast on C-SPAN all the way, and he was talking about supporters of Oliver North during Ollie's candidacy for Senate in Virginia. Here is the vice president's quote. Mr. North is banking on the fact that he can raise enough money from the extreme right wing, the extra chromosome right wing. An extra chromosome gives rise to Down syndrome, Klinefelter syndrome, and other conditions that can lead to retardation. That's the nice, unoffensive, caring Al Gore. Remember that one. So that's just another example. We have time for, yes, we do. Whoa, whoa. I didn't finish. I know, Mr. Booty, you're not a regular broadcast engineer, so I'm not going to harp on this, but you did not allow me to finish the trumpet fanfare and to introduce what was happening here. Don't bother recuing it. Let me just start again. That's just let me just... It is already recuing. Okay, so the original mistake has been compounded by another one in direct contradiction of a request. Note that I didn't say order. All right, then. Well, we will wait. We'll have to do it in its entirety. We'll start again. Take a break now. I'll give you a little hint. Some guys in Wisconsin apparently took my advice the other day. We'll be back in just a second.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
Sorry, I'm late getting back here, ladies and gentlemen. Got the weirdest message coming into my award-winning answering machine I've ever heard. Greetings, welcome back. It's El Rush Ball, Open Line Friday, 1-800-282-2882 is the number. Now, Mr. Booty, what I'm going to do here is the trumpet fanfare, the da-da-da-da-da, and then I will explain what's coming up, and then I'll make an obvious request of you to then begin the appropriate theme song. You got it? All right. Now, that's the trumpet fanfare. You recognize that. Okay. It has been a while, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody obviously listening to me, taking my advice. Time for a homeless update. It's Clarence Frogman Henry. Note men here, not women. 3 men have been charged with recruiting homeless people in Tennessee, Al Gore's state, and transporting them to Wisconsin to remove asbestos without training or protective gear. The department, the Environmental Protection Agency, the National Coalition for the Homeless, also announced that posters warning against the practice and its serious health risks will be put up in homeless shelters across the country now so as to protect unwary homeless people from being exploited in asbestos places. Attorney General Janet El Reno said today that, quote, knowingly removing asbestos improperly is criminal. Exploiting the homeless to do this work is simply cruel, unquote. Now, appearing with El Reno at a Justice Department news conference was EPA Administrator Carol Browner. She said the government's efforts will go beyond prosecution and punishment of offenders. Beyond. How do you do that? How do you go beyond prosecution and punishment of the offenders? Well, let's see what they're going to do. Quote, we really want to prevent this. Well, how big of them? I hope you know that, folks, that your government wants to prevent this kind of exploitation. I wouldn't have known that had they not said it. She said even a small amount of asbestos fiber in the lungs can cause health problems for decades. It's almost as bad as secondhand smoke. And diesel fumes, which we learned yesterday, will get you too. And you know what's funny about that? Remember the liberals were pushing these Volkswagen Rabbits and all over the place? Diesel, this, diesel. Go ahead and get diesel, no pollution, cleaner air. So people listen to the liberals and we find out that diesel fumes put people at risk. Santos in Yuba City, California. We go back to you now, sir, on Open Line Friday. Hi.
Megadittos, Rush.
Thank you.
I was wondering if I could remind you of some other hateful things that Democrats have said in recent years. I remember after the Oklahoma City bombing, you and your listeners and virtually every Republican was accused of causing Tim McVeigh to bomb that building. And
wait, that's not... You're oh so close. Let me, since you bring that up, can I remind people what actually happened with that?
Of course.
And I want to tell you something. It was that Oklahoma City bombing that really revived Clinton, folks, if you want to know, because it allowed him to assume the mantle that he does better than anybody else, and that's mourner-in-chief. When the Oklahoma City bombing occurred, the president did not refer to anybody by name, but instead started talking about all the hate talk that's on radio out there. The press assumed that he was talking about me, and so they asked him. And, of course, I was livid. And, you know, as people ask me, and it happened last week, Rush, just tell me the truth, do you hate Bill Clinton? And I said, no, I don't hate him, but I'm going to tell you something, folks. That was, for the President of the United States, you talk about low and political and a low standard, to sit there and try to exploit that tragedy in a political way by trying to blame people on the radio for the actions of that. And when they called my name on it and the press demanded to know if he was talking about me, they backed off and they said, no, we're talking about some of these clods that are on shortwave radio out there. And that's when we learned about the militia movement. They had their own radio networks on shortwave and so forth. But the damage had been done. So that's how that actually happened, Santos. And all that took about a week to play out, what I just described for you.
Okay, well, I appreciate the correction. Can I mention a couple other things I remember Democrats saying?
Sure.
Like, I believe it was Don Fowler or Roy Romer, I can't remember which, but after a Democrat National Committee meeting, they said, don't drink and drive, but if you have to drink and drive, try to do it while Phil Graham is crossing the street. And it's also interesting that when a Democrat calls, like John Kerry calls Clinton an unusually good liar, he's not called on the carpet like Dan Burton is. And also, I remember when Craig Livingstone got into a fender bender with Floyd Flake of New York, he called him a rather vulgar name.
Oh, yeah, use the N-word.
He used the N-word. And
that's
also
right.
He also used, the A-word, the stupid N-word.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no outrage over that. But then, Craig Livingstone's not exactly...
Well, that's because liberals have good hearts, you see, and their intentions are honorable. Sometimes they lose it because they get so mad at Republicans. Speaking of Craig Livingstone, does anybody know who hired him yet? I wonder if they could ask Karen Mann, that tarot card reader who claims to... Well, never mind. I know. Lantos, Tom Lantos from California, congressman from California, was interviewing Craig Livingstone and about some stuff Livingstone had done with the FBI files and stuff. And it was shortly after that Navy Admiral Mike Borda had committed suicide for dishonor. And so Lantos is lecturing Craig Livingstone. This is one Democrat to another. And Lantos said, and I think this is pretty close to what he said. He said, at least Admiral Borda committed suicide for far less than what you have done. I know, Livingstone. Was that pretty close, guys? That's pretty good. Admiral Borda committed suicide for far less. And Livingstone just eyes rolled in his head. Said, my God, you want me to kill myself? And, of course, they went to Lantos later and said, you telling Livingstone to kill himself? I am surprised that I have been so misunderstood by my colleagues. And they backed out of it somehow. Anyway, Santos, that's a great memory out there. That's why you people are ditto heads. We'll take a break. Be back with more in a moment.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
We're going to start on the 96 campaign to elect Bill Clinton as our re-election on the next minute.
Rush Limbaugh back serving humanity on the cutting edge of societal evolution. Open line Friday, 1-800-282-2882. Here's a cell call. Comes from Herdsfield, North Dakota, from Josh. Hey, how are you?
Hey, Rush, how's it going?
Pretty well, sir. Thanks for calling.
Mega dittos from the Peace Garden State.
You bet. The Peace Garden... Whoa. Peace Garden State?
The Peace Garden State.
That's new. Where's the Peace Garden?
The Peace Garden is on the northern border by Canada.
Oh, I get it.
Kind of a tourist attraction there.
I get it. Okay,
So,
sorry.
anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Just going to ask you about this, if you've been reading about the Randy Moss situation at all here. He was a Heisman candidate.
Wide receiver, Marshall University, a
Yes.
bad actor. Drafted in the first round, late in the first round by the Minnesota Vikings, now owned by Tom Clancy. Coached by Dennis Green. Randy Moss is, help me if I'm out a little bit wrong here, but he's beaten up his girlfriend a couple times. He's had some scrapes with the law.
Yes, he has.
Is that right?
Yes, correct. And I was wondering what you think about this and the whole image it's casting on the league, and also in the basketball with Latrell Sprewell. And
don't they have the same kind of hairstyle?
Yes, they do, actually.
Yeah, I thought that. See, I notice these things, my friends, because I am your host. Well,
and not that I would stereotype him just because of his hairdo or anything like this.
Well,
but,
did you think that's what I was doing?
Oh, no. But I'm saying
good.
that. But I'm just wondering, how much should the league put up with this, and are they?
The league is not going to put up. The National Football League is not going to put up with it once it happens in their league. They got new rules. But my question is this: the guy's a great player. The guy is a great wide receiver. He's all pro potential. He can do his job really well. What does it matter what he does in his private life? See how fast I'm learning the way it is in America, my friends?